we're not going to be able to track every development in the world and those LLMs so on. Okay, where can we win? We're probably not going to be equipped in LG Nova to compete with, let's say, Google's LLMs or OpenAI's. That's not what you're going to do. Instead, we're going to focus on the actual benefits to people and focus on what AI can do to really add value.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Sokwoo Rhee. Sokwoo is the Executive Vice President of Innovation at LG Electronics and the head of the company's North America Innovation Center, or LG Nova, in Silicon Valley. LG Electronics is a manufacturer of home appliances and televisions based in Seoul, South Korea, and the company earned more than $63 billion in revenue in 2024. Sokwoo leads LG Electronics' global innovation activities, new business creation, strategic partnerships, and ecosystem development. Before joining LG Electronics, he was Associate Director for Cyber Physical Systems Innovation at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, covering innovation programs for the Internet of Things and smart cities. He also was a White House Presidential Innovation Fellow. He began his career as an entrepreneur. Sokwoo, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
My pleasure. Well, Sokwoo, maybe we begin with a brief overview of the company that you're with and the team that you lead, if you don't mind. Describe, if you would, LG Electronics business generally speaking, as well as LG Nova more specifically.
Sure. LG Electronics, as you know, and as many people would know, is one of the largest appliance and TV manufacturers. And we are pretty much a number one in terms of the appliances like washers and dryers and refrigerators. And TVs are we also have a huge market share as well. So we are essentially a manufacturing company, a global manufacturing company for appliances and home-related devices. Now, we are doing very well in our business. There's no question about that. Now, LG Electronics also looks at beyond the manufacturing, obviously, just like any other major companies. What about software? What about platform businesses? What about healthcare? What about AI? That is sort of like a big wave right now. So that's why they created a innovation center here in Silicon Valley called LG Nova. And that's why they invited me to join and lead it about 4.5 years ago. That's why I'm here.
Talk a bit about interesting, as you note, many would know the organization, of course, because of appliances and television. Areas like healthcare, for example, that may seem like a bit far afield from where at least some people would typically note the company as having areas of emphasis. How, for example, was that? I suppose I can see in some ways the extension to software, to platforms, to artificial intelligence, all of which apply in a manufacturing and beyond a manufacturing setting as well. Talk a bit about the extension to healthcare, if you would.
Absolutely. So there are two angles you got to look at. First is that LG Nova was designed to follow the market. Okay, regardless of where our core competency as of today is, we're going to look at 5 years and 10 years from now, and we cannot just live with what it got today. So we have extensive network ecosystem and startups and partners and so on. And sort of like we picked a few core areas that we believe the market is really going in 5 and 10 years. And healthcare was chosen as one of them. So that's why healthcare may look a little bit off from existing businesses, which is correct. And that was not necessarily a mistake. It was actually a conscious and intentional choice to make. And secondly, this is a little bit more of a philosophical issue. LG and LG as a whole, its motto is life's good. We care a lot about people's lives and quality of life. That's what they do. And when you look at the future growth areas, we really want to focus and invest in the area that's going to actually make people's lives better. And healthcare, as we can see, it is obviously one of the top choices in that regard. So that's why we are working on healthcare.
Makes a lot of sense. Very interesting. Talk a bit about your purview, if you would. I mentioned that you are the EVP of Innovation at LG Electronics, the head of North American Innovation Center as well. Talk a bit about the role that you play, if you would, and have now for more than 4 years, as you noted.
Yeah, yeah. So this is interesting. So first, it's been only 4 years with LG Electronics, and before that, I wasn't exactly into manufacturing business, and that's actually why they hired me in some sense because they mean the LG Electronics wanted to really have somebody who's going to look things differently and not bound by existing DNA or existing thought process. So I am a mechanical engineer by training, but most of my career has been on software and communication and smart cities, as you noted. So it's a different field. So they brought me in, and mandate was actually pretty simple. Figure out what would be the most promising growth area in 5 to 10 years from now that doesn't necessarily need to be aligned with our existing business. I mean, existing business is doing great. I mean, there's a tons of people who are experts in that. But find what is in that 5, 10 years and not just find it, but actually build new businesses on that. So that's my mandate. So my whole coverage or my job is here in Silicon Valley to create new businesses. And when I say new business, I'm not just talking about creating a project. I'm not literally about creating new legal entities and spinning off new businesses.
What a fascinating purview you have. So interesting to hear that. You noted earlier why healthcare was chosen. May I ask what was the process that you used, and if you recall some of the other areas that were in consideration? It sounds like you were almost given a blank slate and now go scan the landscape for opportunities. I wonder how you went about doing so and what some of the other options happened to have been.
Yeah, exactly, Peter. That's exactly what was a job that was given to me. Wasn't it? It was a great job. Actually, it's a great job if you think about it. So yes, the first is it was a great opportunity, great job, but it was really open slate. I mean, I had to essentially look at the whole world and then see, okay, what's out there, what's going to be really aligned with the vision that we might have. And by the way, although I wasn't bound by the DNA of LG Electronics, but the LG Electronics has its own culture. It has its own sort of like a founding philosophy or principles. So I had to take that into account, like, for example, life's good philosophy, for example. So what I did was actually pretty simple. I looked at thousands of startups out there, especially in the North America, Europe, and actually globally. And we started looking, okay, who are interested in working with LG Electronics. And we essentially called for a sort of like a solicitation, and we called it grand challenges. Say, hey, if you guys want to work with us, please come to us. By the way, we are not just looking for appliances and TV related startups. That we made it extra clear that we are looking at 5 to 10 years. Please tell us what all your startups think that LG should get into in 5 to 10 years. So it was almost like a crowdsourced mechanism. Instead of it's not just the idea, it was like actual collaboration solicitation. So a lot of them came to us, and we did statistical analysis. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, healthcare and clean tech slash energy, of course, and AI wasn't as big 4 or 5 years ago, but it evolved into AI. Initially, we thought about more of a, like at that time, there was a metaverse and there was sort of like a, virtual world type of businesses, but it quickly evolved into AI. So that's where we ended up with.
Very interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing those perspectives. Can you talk about the team you've built to work with you internally and the way in which you lead the team to do the work you've described?
So, Peter, it's interesting. I've been working in private sector. I worked in the public sector, and I also worked in with the experts and so on. And it sort of like gave me a belief that a diverse career background is extremely important in innovation. Meaning that if you want to think about something new, you got to actually get out of your own DNA. You have to get out of your own box. Otherwise, it's impossible to do something new. And then it's very difficult to get out of your own box if you're working with people who had the exact same career as you had. Essentially, you are inside of your own silo. Now, that's why I said, okay, I'm going to create a center in Silicon Valley, but I'm not going to necessarily only hire Silicon Valley experts. I mean, we will have some of them, but not all of them. So the mix of the expertise we have is obviously Silicon Valley veterans who's been here for 20, 30 years. That's about a third of them. And the other third is surprisingly, from government organizations and academic institutions. And those are places that probably never even be famous for innovation, but they're actually very smart people in those places. And then one third is LG employees, like, existing LG employees or even dispatchers and expats from Korea who provide the original perspectives of LG Electronics. So it's sort of like a mix of a lot of different talents. And so far, I can tell you it's working pretty well.
And talk about the broader ecosystem you're also curating, Sokwoo. I don't think it's accidental that you're in Silicon Valley, given the how the center of innovation, perhaps for the globe, certainly here in the U.S. But as you point out, not exclusively there in Europe and Asia, across the world, leveraging people far flung for inspiration. Talk a bit about how you think about that broader ecosystem that you are putting together to leverage for insight.
Yeah. So, Peter, to explain that, I need to first explain the general philosophy of LG Innova. It's what you call outside in innovation. So, when I say outside in, a lot of people think, okay, let's just make an investment into startups or let's acquire a company. It is part of that. But what we thought outside in goes a lot beyond that. We want to work with the startups. We want to work with outside experts and then somehow bring their expertise into us and then generate something new on our own. So that's what outside in for us. So our ecosystem is extremely diverse and broad, and it's extremely important. Put it this way, our innovation and our new business creation comes out of those ecosystems. This is a weird concept, but we don't generate anything just by ourselves. We generate stuff in collaboration with outside ecosystem. So we have thousands of startups in our database, the ones that we interact with. We select a subset of that, probably about 50 of them per year, and we sit down and interact and very intensely say that, okay, hey, startup, you have a great technology, but LG, we're going to be able to bring in something in addition to that. And LG going to build our own business. How can it create some kind of like synergy between two and create a completely new business? And frankly, which is not necessarily related to manufacturing, for example. So that is kind of like concept. And by doing that, we built a tremendous network of startups and also investors. And obviously, when you build a startup ecosystem, you also work with the investor ecosystem. And we work with a lot of government agencies and also state government. And when I say work with the government agencies, some of the Silicon Valley veterans and say, oh, poof, I mean, government is a government, right? I mean, what are you going to do? We have actually pretty interesting, unique way to collaborate with them. We don't just talk to them. Yeah, we talk to them, but we literally come up with a joint project that LG Nova creates new businesses, and state governments are extremely eager to create new jobs. So this digital jobs, that's what they call more of software jobs and so on. And then also they want these new technologies to be tested and deployed in their states because that's the way to create new jobs and benefit the residents. So this is where one plus one becomes more than two. And that's how we work with a lot of state governments is working pretty well.
Well, let's talk about one of those examples. I know one of them, at least, is West Virginia.
Mhm.
LG and the state of West Virginia announced a strategic initiative to grow new tech ventures in the state. Talk a bit about the genesis of that, why West Virginia, and also some of what is beginning to develop as a result of the partnership.
Absolutely. So if I really want to talk about the genesis, yeah, it was really just one meeting between us and one of those officials, but that really clicked. I mean, in our case, okay. So what does LG need in terms of the collaboration? And we really need a U.S. The way that we can deploy what we call first customer. We're going to develop new businesses, but new businesses always require the first customer. That is extremely tough to get. Once you have the first customer and show the success, it has a snowball effect. That's why it is very important and actually interesting to have a first customer. And then West Virginia is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's not the most richest state in the United States. It's one of those states that is eager to develop more, themselves more, eager to turn into more of a digital economy. That's what they call it. So, but they're willing to work. They're excited, enthusiastic about that aspect. They just need some help from companies like LG to ignite and stimulate that. So that's how we got together and say, okay, LG, you're going to bring in our expertise and also expertise of Silicon Valley Innovation Center. And then West Virginia, we're going to work with us to deploy our solutions. And also, LG is going to create jobs in West Virginia. So that's kind of like what happened, especially in healthcare. And West Virginia, there's a lot, it's not just West Virginia, but the whole United States, there are a lot of issues with the chronic conditions, diabetes and obesity and all the high blood pressure. And West Virginia is not exception. There are a lot of issues with that. And with being the rural state in many cases, the access to healthcare is always limited. So that's where we come in and say, okay, we can add technology. We can help manage those conditions for the residents and hopefully make the state healthier and also grow the economy by doing that. And LG obviously happy to grow our business there.
Amazing. And including developing offices in the state as well, in Morgantown and Huntington, boots on the ground,
Absolutely.
so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we literally, as you said, we started an office in Morgantown and we keep hiring as we have predicted. And then now they have a critical momentum that they are developing their own businesses. I mean, initially, obviously, it needs a little bit ramp up curve, but now they have enough momentum themselves that now they're internally developing their own new businesses with working with the Santa Clara office. So Morgantown office for us, we call it a HQ2. I mean, it's sort of like our HQ2. It's amazing. They're dedicated. They really want to work inside of their state to make a great economy and help the economy. State government is awesome. They're all about business. They're all about helping businesses to grow. So far it's working very well. And then we have not just created jobs, but we are actually working with University of West Virginia, for example. Their medical school is one of the best. And then also Marshall University, and they also have their own medical schools. And a lot of the things we are doing, chronic care management and also mental health management, all these solutions are deployed and collaborated from even from the design process, working with those medical schools over there.
Yeah, well, we've already mentioned a couple different times the emphasis on health and healthcare as areas of focus. In June 2024, your organization helped launch Primefocus Health, focused on transforming healthcare through technology and patient-centered solutions. Talk a bit about that, if you would. I would love to understand a bit more about the emphasis there and how it's evolved since the launch a little bit more than a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually a great example that a lot of startups that came to us inspired us as well as being partners with us. And then also working with the West Virginia, we can actually see the real problems on the ground. So the chronic care management, for example, obesity and diabetes, uh, a lot, 1/3 of the U.S. population is suffering from some kind of those kind of chronic care diseases right now. And the states in West Virginia is just there are not enough number of hospitals. It's just far away. It's very hard to. It's not hard, but it's far away to go to those hospitals and insurance companies. And we figured out like, hey, about 90, close to 90% of the insurance payments are going to something related to those chronic conditions. It's a huge problem. So how can we help manage those conditions and make it better by working with the patients and also with hospitals. So from the hospital perspective, which are our direct customers of the Primefocus, their problem is this. The doctors meet these chronic care patients probably once every 3 months, maybe once every 2 months at best. Now it's very hard to see what happens in the middle. I mean, all they see is like every 3 months they meet and do the blood pressure and see the diabetes mark and so all that. Okay, you're improved, but there are a lot of things in between that patients wants to interact with the hospital, and hospital wants to interact with the patients and more frequent sort of interactions. Not when I say interactions, not phone call, but some way to keep monitoring each other's perspective. That's where the solution comes in. So we work with the hospital. Primefocus works with the hospital, and what they do is they provide remote monitoring plus diagnosis, and also sort of like an early intervention program if there's any kind of issues, even if it is in between those the meetings with the doc appointments with the doctors. So it's being deployed with the Marshall Healthcare, which is part of the Marshall University right now, and the pilot began about a couple of months ago. It's so far going pretty well. If it goes well, we're going to expand it to the broader West Virginia population. And if it goes well, it can go beyond the West Virginia population, obviously. So that's it is what this Primefocus is doing right now.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing those stories. Just remarkable progress already, it seems, with a lot of exciting potential implications in the future, as you just noted. We've talked already about energy being an area of emphasis and artificial intelligence for that matter. PADO is an LG Nova-backed venture focused on AI-driven energy management solutions. Talk a bit about that one as well, if you would, and how it came about,
Yeah.
and some more of the implications of that from your perspective.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't have to explain what AI is or why. Everybody knows that by now. But AI needs a lot of electricity. And as you probably know, is that a lot of data centers needs to be built. And electricity does not increase exponentially. Data centers can be built exponentially. Energy or utilities cannot provide enough energy exponentially. So there is that gets a gap there. So the question is going to come down to at some point, okay, how can we make the data centers more efficient? Meaning that how can it run the data centers either better or in the same way with a less energy? That's going to come down to that. So, okay, how do we do it? And these typically what happens is, okay, you're gonna bring in renewable energy and you're gonna bring in other sources of energy and so on. The problem is there's this price gap in every day, and even during the day, that sometimes electricity is expensive, some electricity is less stable because it's renewable, for example, and all these issues are there. The question is, all these energy sources are used in data centers. Now, if you look at the data centers, this is actually interesting part. There are thousands and thousands of these chips, GPUs, that actually run to do this AI inference and training. Interestingly, these jobs change it by seconds. I mean, this or sometimes in the split of seconds, the load of these jobs change. So you probably want to burn expensive energy. Even if you burn expensive energy, you gotta do it. Okay. Some jobs are probably less urgent. You can put it off, for example, an hour, or probably even put off for a few seconds. That level of the coordination, that level of orchestration is going to be critical in saving the energy. It's almost like if I use the analogy, if you think about the stock market trading, and there's this called like a quant trading. It's like you're not trading by your person. It's a machine in split seconds. They make decisions to get the best result out of it. So as an analogy, you can kind of think of the same concept applied to data centers. Like in the split seconds, and obviously people cannot respond in split seconds, but if you use actually, so interestingly, AI to make it better in data centers, you can actually save a lot of energy. And that's what this PADO does, and that's what PADO is aiming for. I'm extremely excited because I can only see this data center demand, it will only grow exponentially. But energy availability doesn't grow exponentially. This is where we're going to come in and help.
Yeah, remarkable. Given the pace of change in artificial intelligence, Sokwoo, I wonder how do you and your team remain abreast of that? It seems like every week there's some consequential new model that was released or new capability that an LLM can undertake. I wonder how do you remain cognizant of and aware of these changes so that you're able to incorporate that into the thinking that you and your team are doing?
Yeah, it is a tough question. You are absolutely right. I mean, every week or even every day, something new comes out, and even the existing ones get improved by, 200%, 300%. It's just hard to keep up with. So we have to look at where we can win. I mean, that's the strategy we are taking. Okay, we're not going to be able to track every development in the world in those LLMs so on. Okay, where can we win? We're probably not going to be equipped in LG Nova to compete with, let's say, Google's LLMs or OpenAI's. Okay, that's not what you're going to do. Instead, we're going to focus on the actual benefits to people. Focus on what AI can do to really add value to people and actually create some, real the business value out of it. So, for example, AI energy, that PADO that I just mentioned, the fundamental technology that we use is AI, but the business itself is not necessarily AI itself. We are actually helping AI to get better by helping data centers by using AI, which is a little weird to say it this way, but that's sort of like AI is helping AI get better. Uh, so we look at business models very carefully, not necessarily technology. Technology will going to come. So by doing this, business cases do not change overnight. Technology can change overnight, but business cases and value to people do not change overnight. So that's what we are focusing. That's what call like we focus on the vertical AI businesses. That's what they call it.
I wanted to ask you, as you mentioned, and I also mentioned at the outset, you've got a very interesting background coming into this. You have experience in the private sector. You have very meaningful experience in the public sector as well. I mentioned your time at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, as well as at the White House. I wonder, what do you draw from your experiences in places like those now in a very different environment here?
So that is actually a great question. I'm going to explain a little bit about why I even joined the public sector, okay? Because it's going to get a little weird because I was a startup guy. Right out of my grad school, I started my own company and raised multiple rounds funding, very traditional and conventional venture building experience. I did that for about 10 years. And my company got sold at some point, and I was like, okay, what do I want to do next? And at that point, I always felt that something was missing in my career. And then what was missing is this, it's like when you do startup, you focus on your product. That's all you focus on because you got to survive and you got to actually make it work. But you have a very few opportunities to look at beyond what you do. So like broader market is very hard to understand when you do a startup. So I always had this urge that I really want to look at more broadly, things more broadly, not just look at one specific product or technology I'm working on. So that's when I got a call from a recruiter, actually, was hired by the White House. And they say, hey, there's something called the White House Innovation Fellow position. And what is that? White House, hey, what is it? And then they said they are very serious about the Internet of Things, IoT, for the future of the United States. So they said they're looking for an expert who can work on it broadly, not just a specific product. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And that kind of fits into what I was looking for. And I spent 10 years in pioneering of the IoT foundations and fundamentals. And I really want to see where it can actually be applied, not just in one specific market, but broadly. And I thought probably this position, this White House Innovation Fellow, could be the best position actually to do it. And I was right. And when I got in there, my job was to work with 500 companies globally and 200 cities and customers globally to come up with and identify the best business cases for IoT and which evolved into smart city at that point. So point I'm the just long story to tell you that my experience as a somebody who looked at one thing very closely for 10 years in a startup, combine that with multiple years of experience that was given to me is a blessing that I got. And it's like to look at really global perspective. And by combining those two, now I am at a position in LG Nova that I can really see a lot of things in a very different way. And now you ask how this public sector experience helping me to do it. That's how it's helping me to do my job right now.
Very, very interesting. I wonder, as you look to the future now, as your team obviously doesn't tread water, but continues to look into new opportunities that are exciting and advance the agenda that you noted earlier in our conversation. What other trends excite you as you look to the future that you believe have some real potential positive implications to an organization like yours?
If you ask that to any Silicon Valley folks, they're going to start talking about hey, quantum computing and all these things. But I'm not going to go there. There's a reason I'm not going to go there. So LG Electronics is a company that is wants to change the world, but not by just dreaming about changing the world. Okay, we change the world by implementing the changes and products and services. And sometimes we really want to see the real impact in the matter of few years, not like 10 years, 20 years. I mean, that's kind of our culture. I mean, you can say, well, it's not really long-term view or something. Yeah, well, I mean, that's our DNA and that's our culture. So the way I look at it is, okay, how can we see the impact? How can we make the impact on people's lives in, let's say, in the matter of 3 to 5 years? That's kind of what I look at. So we always look at sort of like a combination of different technologies, or sort of like a combination of different markets and leveraging different technologies instead of trying to invent something completely new. Doesn't mean that we are not doing it. It's just our focus is okay, what is our 3 to 5 years? So I really look at when I look at AI will be the enabler. The way I look at it is AI is not just a sector. It is going to be an enabler. It's going to be like a foundational a change maker. So if you apply it, and we are looking at all kinds of different sectors, even training market, the learning and development market, for example, even like even the consulting businesses, you may think, oh, consulting businesses, but there are a lot of way to disrupt that consulting, which is people and companies spend astronomical amount of money in those things. So to make it short, I think the market is, I mean, the possibility is wide open, but I believe AI we're going to play the major role in anything we do.
Makes a lot of sense. Before I let you go, Sokwoo, I wanted to see if there's anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened to that you recommend to others. Anything come to mind?
It's funny that you ask me. I'm watching the one series in Netflix right now. It's about a fireman who is an inmate. Actually, I even forgot the title, but there's this TV series that there's an inmate who became a firefighters. Okay, and then the reason this is so exciting is I've been always thinking myself as an underdog. That's me. I always start from somebody who is nobody and then trying to make something, create something out of nothing. So that is kind of like has been my life, and that's still what I'm doing. So I always like this underdog story, somebody who either was thrown into difficult places, but make it work, try to come out of it, beat the world to make a difference. It sort of resonates with me, and I know it may not be that exciting from the techie audience, but I really think that kind of story is something that people should really pay attention to.
That's really great. And I love the way that it resonates with you as a feeling of camaraderie, perhaps to the character in your own way. That's a great example. Well, Sokwoo Rhee, thank you so much for making time for me today, for sharing a bit about the remarkable work that you're doing as part of LG Nova, some of the specific innovations you're doing, even the remarkable work you're doing across different states in the U.S., West Virginia more specifically. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.